to admit everybody. Call meeting to order at approximately 7:37. Works. Steve, would you lead us in?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a roll call, please.
President Kells.
I'm present.
Secretary Sutz.
President accounted for.
Treasurer Hannah.
I'm here.
Trustee Simpson.
Here.
Trustee Saylor via Zoom.
Here.
I need a motion to, can I put these all in one motion? The regular
I'm
meeting,
okay with
executive session.
Mhm.
I need one motion to approve the regular meeting, executive session, special meetings and executive session from 6:15, 6:15, 6:28, 6:28.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Are there any remarks from the floor or from the audience? Oh, that's the time.
Yeah.
Stand up.
Have at it. You can.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Eileen Tibble, a resident. And I'd first like to reiterate my thank you to the firefighters and staff, trustees and committee members, all of you for your tireless service to our community. I know you're facing continual tough decisions. Please know you do have a large group of residents that support you and appreciate you, and know that you have given so much to keep us safe. I was glad to see TIF 2 on the agenda for tonight. I would like to see the fire department take a critical look at how the TIF impacts the district and take a position on this important issue, and really advocate for what you need. In fact, in general, I would like to see the fire department be more proactive and more vocal within the community, raising awareness of needs and weighing in on village developments that impact the fire department service. While local politics and being stretched thin from budget constraints, I'm sure have made this kind of engagement difficult, I believe it's important for the fire department to have a more prominent voice advocating for what is in the best interest of your district and the residents you serve. When more residents and the village leadership know what is happening, there are better opportunities for us to support you as well as you have supported us. So thank you for your service.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to read a statement from a neighbor who submitted electronically. This is from Dave Hempy, a resident of the fire district and also the Board of Education District 34 president. He said, I would like to express my concerns with the Village of Winfield initiating the process to start another 23-year TIF. As president of the District 34 School Board, I, as well as other members, have many questions regarding the TIF and its legitimacy. There are more questions than answers, and the lack of a planned use of these dollars, other than to build a new village hall and police department and streetscape improvements with possible incentives to lure businesses, is very concerning. Until the Village of Winfield Board can provide accurate and transparent information, the school district will be opposed. Thank you, David Hempy. Thank you. And I personally, can I make a, I was just the messenger. Luke Allen, resident. I really would like to echo what Eileen said about using your voice to advocate on the district's best interests in the discussions about the TIF. I think that, although we've made some progress helping members of the public learn more about the needs of the fire district, nobody knows as well as you do what the needs of the district are. And I think that you are in the best position to be able to advocate for the needs of the fire district and the public safety that this district provides. I would strongly encourage you to take a more advocating and vocal role in the discussions of the TIF. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to just tell you, and Eileen, it's nice to have some remarks from the community, and also appreciate everything you've done for us and your opinion as a resident. Thank you both very much.
I echo that.
Reports. Treasurer reports?
Treasury report is in your packet. All looks good.
It's still warming up to this as presented.
Yeah, as presented is the key word. See, I'm getting there.
I'll make a motion to accept the treasurer's report as presented.
As presented.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Look at that. I'm really bad at that one.
Chief, do you have anything you'd like to talk about?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President.
Right, it's Chief.
So
Yeah, she's in.
as is the norm, this month, the special operations training was water rescue. And it was led in large part by Winfield. Our members contributed extensively to some really quality training for our other Alliance team members. A lot of good education out of it. It was held at Mallard Lake Forest Preserve, nice central location for all of the companies from the different communities to go. Our people, including the ones present, were absolutely instrumental in providing quality drill to our neighbors in the event of those first company operations and that kind of thing, in the event of a water-related incident. And special note, of course, to Eddie Troutman, who led the effort, and all of the crews and staff that really was 3 very hard days. They're long drills. It's a complete day times 3. And they handled it like the true professionals they are. So my sincerest compliments to them for all of that. The multi-company training for the month is in progress today, tomorrow, and the next. Rural operations, which Winfield also has a leadership role, is one of, and frankly, I've said it before, I'll say it again, I think there's many of our neighbors do an outstanding job. We do an outstanding job. I don't think anyone does the rural operation stuff better than us. And our crews are top notch. And again, providing that leadership, because if there is a high-rise fire in a community, we all go. And we're soon to have one, but you know, other communities had more so over those times. So similarly, those places that don't have rural areas that are fully supplied by municipal water supply systems don't necessarily know how to do the rural operations. A lot of municipal and metropolitan fire departments don't. So this is that opportunity. Hey, you're coming to us and you might be the one that has to draft out of the porta tank and supply water to the attack engine down the quarter-mile driveway, and teaching them and practicing with them and giving them tips and pointers and all that stuff. So it's really good stuff. And again, guys are providing a lot of leadership on that. It's being held out at Station 7 in West Chicago, or correction, Station 5 out in West Chicago, over the fire station by the Menards. Good training. If anyone's interested in going, I'd be happy to take you over there and go with you. Recent incidents to note: on June 21st, Tender 31 assisted Wheaton with a structure fire on North Washington Street. September 22nd, Redshift, we had an interesting, not good, but interesting call in the area of Swan Lake and Winfield Road. A hazmat, a fairly significant fuel leak. Companies were out there for many hours and engaged state agencies and the county assets to help mitigate the call. So compliments to Redshift for a job well done. And we got an assist from West Chicago Squad 7. On the 24th of June, there was a tornado that went through the area, and we spent a considerable amount of time in Wheaton assisting with them. Multiple reported structure fires, reported actual structure fires. So all of us spent a lot of time over there helping them, and then came back and had to deal with additional calls on top of that for the rest of that shift. It was a busy day. On July 2nd, we assisted Warrenville with the structure fire at Tender 31 on Crabtree. And July 4th, our tender went out for a large fire. We assisted Fox River Countryside. Our tender was out there. And noteworthy with this is, as the board is aware, we have had some complications with our tender. And in fact, its primary role is to go somewhere with a lot of water and dump it.
And we've had issues with the dump chutes over the years, and that was one of those occasions where we had some issues with it. We overcame it, and thankfully, because we have a well-trained staff, well-trained crews, they were able to circumvent the system to make the water work and get the dumps to work, but that vehicle has had a problem. So that's something that after we got our engine back, which is later on in my report, that we're gonna have to look at doing something to improve that vehicle, because that's a complication that we just can't have. Service anniversaries. Jeff Littledale and Andrew Martin both celebrated 8 years with the fire district on July 15th. Robin Youngberg celebrated 30 years with the fire district on July 8th.
Well, I'll take it.
So on to other business, Engine 31 updates. Firefighter Brian Burke and I went up to Pierce, their factory service center in Wisconsin on July 9th for what we had hoped to be a final inspection on that vehicle. There were some issues and they're in the process of being addressed. And I'll have more on that. I was promised an update today and I did not receive it. There were some issues with the pump that we're working out with Pierce. So more to follow on that, but unfortunately it
Failed the inspection.
It did. So I don't know what the timeline is going to be. We were hoping it was going to be back, but we're we're engine's not a Pierce, is it? The next one we're buying is not a Pierce, right? We're proceeding with the new hire. The commission met yesterday, and things are moving forward with that. That's all I've worked on that, but it is moving forward. Speaking of our new engine, the committee, as I reported last month, has been formed, led by Lieutenant Fermento. Also, Lieutenant Roman and firefighter Brian Burke are on it. They have begun meeting. They're in contact with vendors, and they're actively diving into it and doing a really, really fine job. FDIC, which is the biggest fire department conference in the country, if not the world, typically runs in the late spring. And because of COVID, it was delayed, and actually it's going to be going in a couple months. So Lieutenant Fermento is actually investigating the possibility of doing a day trip down there, because the vendors are all there in force to really get some good intelligence on the apparatus moving forward. So he's still working on the pricing out of that, as long as we can keep it within budget. That's a possibility. More to follow. He's been working actively on that. So the utility 31, which you'll see parked outside, we recently had an inspection done on that, and it's in tough shape. So we're going to probably be looking at expediting the replacement of that vehicle, because it was found to have multiple mechanical issues. So I'll have more to do with that. I just wanted to let you know that it recently had an unsuccessful inspection of its safety. So that's going to be coming as well. Pension board met earlier today. As many of you may or may not know, there is a consolidation of local Article 3 and Article 4 pension funds moving downstate. And we were notified that we were going to be part of the first round of those transfers. So the pension board has been working diligently to be compliant with all of the regulations to make those transfers complete. And again, as recently as this morning, they worked to.
So we're the first ones because we're over 90%.
Probably. That's what I said. There has not been given a rationale behind how the selections were made.
Just
We are
that
in the first round.
So they're collecting the money first, and getting the debt later.
Yep. Sounds about right. We're in the first round of.
That's another great job by everyone that's been on the pension board, by our going unrewarded, and hopefully the state will track it well, although when I was on the pension board, there never seemed to be any guarantee of promise on that. So it's a little scary. I'm sure you're as nervous about it, probably more nervous about it than I am, because
So he's currently
we've done a good job.
he's currently the secretary of the pension board. So he's one of the people that is actually one of the point people on all of that.
Right.
I've been in touch with our attorneys.
Right.
And there's still more information coming.
Right.
You don't actually shift until October 1st.
Thank God.
Yeah, but there's a lot of compliance issues that have to be done before August 1st.
August 1st.
Yeah, everything's put together, I just gotta.
Yeah, so we've got it well in hand. Annual audit is nearing completion, and we can anticipate a presentation in August from Lauterbach and Amon. Anything to add to that? And that is my report.
Before we go further, if you don't mind, President Callis, we did not ask the audience on Zoom if they had any public comments. I'm sorry, we probably should ask.
I thought I mentioned that, but if anyone out there in the internet world would like to jump in, has anything to say, I'm here to listen.
They can unmute or raise their hand.
Yeah, unmute or raise your hand if you didn't hear that. Going. Gone. Thank you for attending. We do appreciate it. Those who stand by the sidelights and cheer are still part of the team. So we'll move on to our attorney.
There's nothing specific to report other than we will probably require a executive session.
Will we be recessing into it, or?
I believe we could recess into it.
Okay.
Yeah. Also prepared to make comments if necessary on the TIF issue.
Okay. Old business. We have some things to discuss. Discussion of possible action with the appraisal company.
As is contained in the memorandum, we, and I will specifically, Robin, who deserves the credit, has worked tirelessly to try and find appraisal companies, which is not proven to be an easy task. In fact, quite difficult. In that search, she was in contact with a commercial real estate team who came out and did an assessment, and that report is contained or attached to the memorandum for their thoughts with respect to marketability and cost from the real estate agent perspective. So there is that, and then if the board's pleasure, if they want us to proceed with a appraiser to come in, it is our recommendation for Marshall and Stevens as indicated in the memorandum. So it's up to the board's discretion how they'd like us to proceed.
So we're asking for an option to move on to choose to go with an appraiser. So I need a motion. There would be a roll call vote, I believe, after that, if we want to move forward with an appraiser.
Is that the motion just to pursue an appraiser, or is it a motion to hire a specific appraiser?
Are you going with Marshall Stevens? The recommended?
I'm sorry, I did the terrible assumption. I apologize.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, with Marshall Stevens. So we need that motion.
I make a motion, we go with the Marshall Stevens.
Yep, I'll second that.
All in favor? Roll call.
President Callis?
Yes.
Secretary Sets?
Yes.
Treasurer Hand?
Yep.
Trustee Simpson?
Yes.
Trustee Saylor?
Yes.
Thank you. We'll get to work on that one.
We have discussion and possible action of LOIs from Gateway Development.
Those letters of intent, we had spoken about them when we had a special meeting, which we could not actually respond to them because they were not on the agenda. So I had briefed the board on those letters of intent. The problem with them is that they're not binding. They don't actually offer to actually come with any wherewithal to buy the building. They effectively take our properties off the market during the pendency of the letters of intent, which could go up to 18 months.
Right.
So.
And their
there's
market
no-
values seem to be somewhat lesser than some of them.
Yeah. they're very
Yeah.
suspect. And so, and that would commit us is if they elect to, that we would then be committed to enter into a contract that would be binding at that.
Basically at the rate of their choosing.
And we just don't, and the reason we are pursuing appraisals is that we're not in a position to actually engage in the active selling.
So it sounds like there's some discussion of whether Peter pulls us as one, if we're interested in anything that he has to offer or not.
I'm not interested in this.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned.
Would we want to do a roll call vote then and say that we're no longer interested in communicating with him now or in the future?
In terms of that, I would recommend that we just notify them that we have no interest in pursuing plans as outlined in there.
Okay. So we don't need a vote on that?
Well, we deferred it for action, so
Right.
we should.
So we would defer to, and it should be a roll call.
Roll call
vote. Okay.
I'll make the motion that we notify them that we're not going to move forward with these LOIs.
President Kelly,
Yeah, I agree.
Secretary Seth.
Yep.
Treasurer Hannah.
Yep.
Trustee Simpson,
Yes.
Trustee Saylor.
Yes.
Okay. Next, discussion and action, proposals for a new, SCBA's, our self-contained breathing apparatus for people that don't know what that means. And we have a grant for the air pack purchase. 4 agencies requested a bid, 2 of which have never responded. One was declined to bid, and one was submitted a bid for $184,160. So we have a grant for that amount of monies. We have a motion to accept that grant.
Just for clarification, the grant wasn't for the full amount, correct? The
Right.
district is on the hook.
It is a
for
matching grant.
15,000 or something.
I think
So the matching grant from FEMA covers a not to exceed figure for all of the pieces and parts of this, and which is less than the cost of the air packs. And so it is a 10% matching grant, but there would be money that would have to be expended above that because of the numbers don't align. So that number will more likely be around a $50,000 number. But there is a worksheet that has to be filled out and submitted to FEMA. That number has yet to be determined because we didn't have a price to put in the calculator to arrive at that. But nonetheless, it is a tremendous savings.
Oh,
And you know, a $154,000 or about $150,000 grant opportunity from the federal government for air packs that come with a lifetime warranty as long as we own them, which was one of the keys because those didn't used to exist. The air packs we currently have are beyond their end of life and out of warranty. So as they break, which is happening now at most live fire drills that we do, we're paying full freight for the repairs. So on many levels, it's a good thing. And I might also add that the bottles that are in use, you can get aluminum bottles, or you can get carbon fiber wrapped bottles. The carbon fiber wrapped bottles have a life expectancy, unlike like a scuba bottle for those that are scuba divers, as long as it passes its hydro testing, their lifespan is indefinite. The carbon fiber bottles have a limited lifespan. Our bottles that we currently have on our current air packs similarly are at their end of life, so we would have to pay to buy new ones anyway. So that would have been a major expense had we not gotten the grant.
Good job.
So we need a motion to.
Need a motion. So moved.
Now, we have to be careful because we need to get a commitment from the company that they can deliver within the grant period,
Yes.
which is next July, right?
Yes. Well, to that point, we have been in communication with them and FEMA about the fact that the grant period because of COVID was extended 1 calendar year, which is not typically the case. And the commitment from the vendor was a delivery in 45 to 60 under current conditions, which again, a lot of things, turnout gear, for example, is an 8 to 10 month lead time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all the parts and all the.
I was gonna say 45 to 60, that's.
I'm making a motion, we accept the grant, and accept the proposal, year max.
Second that.
Roll call. That we will be spending money.
Yes.
President Kelly,
Yes.
Secretary Sachs,
Yes.
Trustee Gannon.
Yep.
Trustee Simpson,
Yes.
Trustee Salem.
Yes.
Okay, we have discussion and possible action on deputy chief selection process.
So the submission period ended on July 18th. I passed out a copy of the submission packets for all the board members for consideration, and
And I would recommend that they be reviewed in executive session.
I think that would be prudent.
Thank you.
We need to move the table or do we just table? I don't know how that works.
Good deal.
Moving on.
Okay, I need a motion to pass the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So moved. I need an agenda for discussion and we're discussing and take action on drafting formal statement.
Did you vote on the consent agenda?
Yes, we
Oh, we did.
All right.
Okay, sorry.
if I could, Mr. President.
Please jump right in.
One item of note in the monthly run report, we are up, actually, I checked yesterday, over 100 calls year to date over last year.
Wow.
So our record year is looking like,
It's a record year.
yeah,
Okay.
so just, again, it's
You guys ran 100 calls yesterday, didn't you?
14.
No, so that's.
You think about that, 14 calls in one day,
Mhm.
And they all last about an hour.
now that's about now, that's a long day.
And that's why looking at simply an average number of calls on a day isn't accurate at all, because there's days like this. So you guys work your tails off.
Looks like there's
We
becoming
continue to
more and more of them.
Yeah.
Indeed.
We have
So
new
thank you.
business. There's a discussion and to take action on drafting the formal statement. It says in opposition of the village of Winfield's proposal, new TIF district. Discussion and possible action on ambulance billing issues.
So, Mr. President, if I can take the first stab at the first item regarding the TIF district. As I was the one that requested it to be put on the agenda. If it's only fair for me to then kick it off. Quite simply, it comes down to this for me. We have spent years saying we need more money. We've had 13 referendums saying we need more money. I think it is absolutely important then that we as a district come out and firmly oppose the TIF district that would take money away from us in the long term. It would limit our income for a period of 20 plus years. And I just don't see how we can sit here as a board and say, hey, we need money, except we don't need money so bad when it's going to go from this district. To me, that is categorically opposing viewpoints. And so that is why I requested this item be put on the agenda. I think we need to be very firm in this. It's going to go to the joint review board. I think we need to make sure that it is known in that at that meeting that the fire district is against this.
In your opinion.
In my opinion.
Your opinion.
And
Because your opinion has been written down at the first.
well, because that's how I submitted it. Yep. If you had submitted it as in favor of it, would go across that.
I wouldn't have.
But-
said it one way or the other.
But I firmly believe that that is the direction that we should go. Given that given that you all had sat at this and said we are a united front, that we need more money. So there's my start.
And it's important, and I think it's an important discussion. When you fight things, you spend a lot of money to fight it, that may or may not bring an outcome that you expect. As a previous board, we fought for condemnation of a little farm up there. I spent several $100,000 losing that battle, and ended up spending $500,000 to buy the piece of property that we could have probably bought for $300,000, but we just made an offer on it. So,
You make it up.
yeah, we did, but they were unreasonable men, but they won. I've been around here a long time, done a lot of things, involved with a lot of things like you are too. And I'm not opposed to fighting the referendum. I'm opposed to spending money to fight the referendum.
That's it.
The tip, excuse me, the tip. I beg your pardon, because I was thinking.
Yep, I'm with you.
So it's just one of those things where if we go against the village, we lose a potential adversary with a brand new board and brand new president. We're carrying forward an old wound from a previous board. If we go with them, we lose a tremendous adversary with the school board, school district. So it's one of those things where I'm really torn. I find myself, my heart bleeds for our men and women of the fire district. I'm aggravated with the 53% of the community that continually stops us down and then doesn't want to pay their ambulance bills. I find it aggravating that way. I'm aggravated at the past government that never gave us a chance. I'm aggravated at us for 13 referendums for never figuring it out that the people don't care enough about us to pay us. But I have a hard time entering in a lawsuit without having a discussion with the village board.
In fairness, though, nothing here talks about entering into a lawsuit. This simply says,
We all know what's gonna happen.
well,
Well, maybe I don't have.
that's not like you're jumping about 6 steps forward.
I might be, but I'm afraid to,
If I may,
choose a side.
if I may say something, I think the whole point of discussion is to take a stand verbally of where we stand, but as a district, we need funds. And the tip, for 23 years of not getting funds from buildings like the medical center and the parking garage, and whatnot, that are being built without tip incentive, and they're gonna take them off the tax roll. Now we've got an apartment complex that we really don't have the equipment to fully take care of. So they're adding all these burdens to the fire district, but they're not helping us in there's no proposal. If money being put into a tip, then they're gonna have a proposal say, look, you know what? We realize you guys are having some difficulties and we're gonna help in this way to offset what you're not getting in tip. That's one thing, whether it be helping us buy a new fire engine or help pay for a guy for 3 years or something. But to just take the money away and we don't have it to work with when we're struggling with what we got, there's an argument to say we really shouldn't be for it because adding more development in the downtown is great for the community, and I would agree with that. But it's not great for the fire district budget.
Well,
And so to voice that,
destroys our budget. I understand that.
to voice that is not, I don't think is a problem. I agree that we don't have the funds to go into a legal battle, and I'm not advocating that.
Correct.
But I think to show our thoughts with the village is not an appropriate step.
Right, right. The safety of the citizens, this is going beyond, taking, like Phil says, the money out of our coffers and not having the repair or tender and having the right equipment. We're not getting any help, and this does not help us at all. This is a detriment to us.
TIF 1 expires in 28, is that correct? We'll see some money there, not enough to do anything, TIF 2. I just would like to have, the way I read this, when you use the word opposition immediately, you put up a fence, you're building a wall.
Absolutely.
And I don't
deny that.
Okay, I mean, if I moved into the house next to you without talking to you, built an 8-foot fence, what would you think of me before you met me? I mean, not that we haven't met the village, but I mean, we're building the wall, and I would like to step cautiously with this. I don't think this is.
So the
We're in a
concern,
no-win situation.
well, the concern is this. We do not have another meeting before the joint review board is scheduled to meet August 3rd. Okay, so we are correct me if I'm wrong, we are a body who has a seat at that table that has the ability to say, this is what we believe is best for us as a taxing body that is impacted by this. So no matter what, we need to have something. We need to be at that table.
Right.
That's our right as a taxing body. That's what we owe to ourselves. That's what we owe to our district.
And the other citizens.
Exactly. Our district is 30,000 people that are being impacted by the actions of 7 people across the street, good or bad. Good or bad, okay? Because in the end, our district, our need for the referendum potentially goes up if our income becomes diminished even further. So the impacts of this TIF is actually even beyond the scope of just Winfield from a financial standpoint. And so to me, again, we're here to represent the citizens. We're gonna ask the citizens for more money. We need to also be opposed to people taking it out of our pockets. And I, again, that's not saying we're gonna go off and go down the path of lawsuits and everything else. That's not what I've said at all. But it costs us $0. It costs us $0 to say, we are against this, and we're gonna be at the JRB meeting and say we're against it. And we're gonna stand as a body, a taxing body, and say, the direction for that JRB meeting is to oppose the approval of the TIF.
Jenny?
I'm with Rob 110%. We've seen how they have handled TIF 1. We've seen the lack of communication, the lack of meetings. It's been mishandled. TIF 2 would be detrimental to us and other taxing bodies. Like, we have to go out, and George, using your words, we have to build that wall, and we have to build it as tall as we can and as quick as we can, because this is going to happen and we're not going to have a chance to react to it after tonight. So we need to come out front and say that we do not want this to happen and that this is going to be detrimental to Winfield.
I've heard all of what you have to say. My only comments on this is that we haven't had a chance to sit down and talk with the new board and the new president. And now we're going to turn around. I'll give you a moment when I'm finished. I'm gonna turn around, and now we're gonna turn around, and we're gonna kind of build a spike wall. I'm just want to step cautiously on this. That's all I'm expressing. Go ahead.
Has anybody from the village reached out to the chief, to invite you to sit down and talk about this before they shove it down our throat? No, they didn't. It's all about them not about us,
Right.
not about the school district, not about the library, not about the citizens. It's about them and their agenda. So like Jenny says, build a wall. It's way past sitting down for tea and crumpets.
Okay.
All right?
I just want to, I feel it's important to express that side of trying to come to an agreement before we become opponents.
Good luck.
And in fairness, just because we come out and say, hey, as presented in our favorite words of the night, the TIF as they have presented it to us, we are opposed. If they have something to offer us, we're here. There's nobody from the village here, nobody from the village leadership at this meeting to make public comment. Here we have a representative from the school board saying, hey, guys, take a look at this. We have a representative from the public, two representatives from the public saying, hey, guys, take a look at this, think about the impact. I mean, our meetings are just as wide open as theirs are. They've yet to come knocking on our door. So that's,
Like I said, I'm trying to take
absolutely.
a neutral stance on this and opposed to, and you can agree with me because, or disagree with me, and, because I'm not right 90% of the time, that's my wife. But, I mean, it's one of those things where if you wanna come out and say you're opposed to it, or you wanna come out and say, I have some problems with this and I hope that we can discuss it. Is there any room for movement as opposed to opposed? And I don't know what the school board, if they're just opposed to it to be opposed to it, if they've tried to discuss it, I don't have the privilege of having that knowledge. If we're informed, we stand united. If the majority of them want to say that you oppose it, then I'll stand with you. But I don't think that's the right
We're going to reach out to them. You got 2 weeks to reach out to them.
And we don't have a meeting between now and then.
Great.
They sent a letter, they conveniently,
Charles on
3 weeks out.
Can I interrupt this discussion for a moment?
Can the public ask a question?
Sure, I always do.
What is the purpose of the JRB? What happens at that meeting? And
Right.
is it a deliberation and a discussion, or is it vote is taken and there's no finessing of the TIF plan? Like, what's the purpose of the JRB and who makes those final decisions?
And will the village be there?
The purpose
Their agendas.
the purpose is to eventually take a vote to either recommend or not recommend the TIF. It is not binding on the village. A negative vote can increase the majority of the village in passing to a 2/3 majority. But it's not binding. You know, it doesn't say that if the joint review committee elects to not recommend it, does not defeat the TIF. So at the agenda that they have is call to order, introduction of the representatives, selection of a public member, selection of a chairperson, which we should discuss as to who we would support as a chairperson, to really express, to direct the conversation that's being had. Then it's a review and adoption of the procedures, TIF plan, review of the TIF plan eligibility requirements. It's very difficult for me not to interject my personal feelings on the fact that those eligibility requirements are pure fiction.
Eligibility of the properties in discussion, or
the eligibility of the criteria.
The criteria.
The whole idea is that
for
it's
pins to
blighted,
be,
and their findings are that there just hasn't been enough development. There was no finding that said that anything was identified as blighted pursuant to the very, very specific definitions of, you have to have 5 of 11 criteria to actually be eligible for a TIF district. And their findings really didn't incorporate that, but that's their business, okay? But that discussion has to be had as to whether or not those criteria were met. Then they would, review the draft of the TIF ordinances, making public comment, and then consideration, and this is what the ultimate goal is consideration of a resolution recommending approval of the redevelopment plan and project area for two. So what is at issue is the discussion of the plan. Is it something that can be approved? Is it something that, and then is the development area, appropriate and according to the members of this review board? And then you'll talk about what the next steps are, which would then be, it would go to a public hearing where the recommendation of this body would be revealed would be disseminated to the public, to the members of the public who are at the hearing. So there is plenty of room for having the discussions that we've had that are similar to the comments that Jenny has made with regard to how TIFs are being administered and whether, which is, I think, in league with the sentiments of the school district that were made in public comment, that there has not been, from the perspective of those organizations, that there has been a transparency or a cooperation and the management of this plan with regard to the interests of the other people. Now, the joint review board stays intact to help administer that fund, and it should be done in a collective way. And I think that's the problem that Jenny was referring to, that those things have not been done. So, I think that every sentiment that has been expressed by the board, including the desire to be cooperative, has to be expressed in the context of what can be expected of an organization that is in the position that we have been in a very long time, and the deferral. One of the biggest, so when you look at this whole effect, what is the real effect on the actual lawful effect that this has on this district? So our taxes would be frozen at the assessed valuation that is accessible to us on all of these properties remains the same. So the argument could be made, well, you're getting the same revenue that you were yesterday. That's not entirely true, because some of the development that is in contemplation has been on properties that have been acquired by the owners of the property seeking the TIF, and the buildings have been raised. So now it's the assessed valuation on bare ground as opposed to approved property. Now, some people might argue that some of those properties, that the cost of demolition and demolishing the properties may have improved its overall market value. And I'm not saying that to criticize what was on there, but from a developer standpoint, anybody that comes in, sometimes raising a building improves the marketability and the assessed valuation of the property. The real effect that it has, and I am concerned about the vacant land, the real effect is that, barring relief from the tax cap through referendum, which we've been told 13 times is not going to happen, our only growth in revenues comes from new construction. Okay, and anytime that a building permit is submitted, the valuation attached to that improvement goes in as new construction, so that we then can access our whole so that we can tax that as if it is not capped by the it doesn't go into our levy base. So our levy base increases, and therefore, our access to additional funds increases. So that's what the problem is that for 20 years, we are not getting any of the benefit of the only source of increase in revenues that we have. Okay, so we don't want to go in with the idea that, well, we're going to be worse off than we are now. We're just going to remain as badly off as we have been with no prospect.
I would
with no
respectfully
prospect of growth.
disagree, because if they're putting apartment buildings up, and then we have to
Oh.
service that, now we're worsening the capacity.
Now, that's the other thing that we have to express. I don't think that there is an appreciation to the growth in service demands that actually occur with these types of properties. Okay, and I think the chief and I have met to analyze what this effect has, and it's very, very real. It's very, very real. If we put up medical buildings and the likelihood that these occupancies are going to be medically related, the number of ambulance calls that are generated from medical offices are significant. It's not insignificant. We have constant complaints of ambulance calls that are generated from the hospital itself, where we have to go to the hospital to transport from one portion of the hospital to the emergency room. Okay, and so the bigger that hospital gets, the greater the growth is, and we've had conversations with the hospital, and they have responded, accordingly. But we do need to recognize that growth has benefits, but there's also costs to it. And I think that what you said, Phil, is exactly correct. But those are the discussions that need to be had, and they can be had in the temperament of what is in the interest of the overall community, and from the perspective of this body, this is the message that we want to convey, and depending on what your decision is that we either can or cannot support it at this time. But I think you can do that with the expression, of a collective way of saying, hey, we are part of this community, and this is how this is affecting us. And for that reason, we can or cannot.
I think it helps. I think it helps that if they would recognize, and I think part of our discussion with them versus argument is to make them aware of the burden and the cost that they're putting onto us for the next 20 years, that we're not getting the benefit of the tax revenue.
Right.
And we just can't take on that burden. We can't take on the burden we already had.
Right.
Yep. That's my message.
I just have a hard time coming out saying in opposition before we have discussion.
Change the verbiage.
So I'd like to change the verbiage. I know that you are a strong-willed and caring individual, not only of this board, but of our community. And I respect you for that. Okay, so there's hopefully no hard feelings.
Oh, God, no.
But I just don't think we need to come out swinging. Okay, I think we need to really, and we shouldn't come out begging either, but we need to be firm in our resolve and have a plan of attack so that we can hopefully win something from this discussion. Because hopefully it doesn't go to a battle.
My biggest concern is the day of the JRB is not solely a day of discussion, it is a day of action.
Hope so.
Okay, it is. I mean, that's literally
Right.
item 9 is the action item is either as a JRB, as a joint review board, recommend approval or recommend the no to the village board. And if it comes across as a no, the village board has to do more to overrule that. Goes from a simple majority to being 5 out of 7. Okay? I don't know when the discussions can happen at this stage, when they've had months to come to us and they haven't done it. I don't know if they've gone to any of the other bodies that are constituted in the JRB. They haven't come here.
No, they have not.
And so
And we haven't approached them either.
we didn't know the date until
Right.
Tuesday of this week.
Right, okay. But I'm just saying.
It was off
and-
their agenda for a year.
And those residents out of town. So,
It was off their agenda for a year. And they're the ones asking, so I think it's their job to come. Quite honestly,
I do too.
you know,
Let's wind the clock back. Don't underestimate the effect that the reaction to the dog and pony show that was put on by the hospital a while back, where there was significant expression of disapproval of these types of plans. And that's what has led to the delays in these meetings that were scheduled long ago. So they are not, so don't underestimate, even though this is non-binding, do not underestimate the power and influence of the voice. But I think it is important that that be done in a measured and rational basis.
Absolutely.
But I think that we can't send a representative in there without instructions as to what the will of this body is in terms of how that is voted. And then how that person discusses with them, our concerns and the expectation that they be addressed in this context and in other contexts need to be done. If this is about improving the community, there's a lot of tentacles to that, to the effects that this is going to have. So that's really what we need to do now, is to indicate who the representative is going to be for the district and what that person's instructions are with regard to how the will of this body will be expressed in terms of the recommendation, how that vote must go.
I will be out of town the first week of August.
No, that's fair. It stinks that it's at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, because that unfortunately rules myself out.
Well, I'm sure they do that on purpose.
I wasn't going to be the one to say it, but I don't disagree. I think there is value to sending 2 people from this room. I don't know if there's legal limits on who we can send, but in my opinion, I believe that the 2 people best suited to represent us and be able to speak intelligently on it would be Chief and Bernie. And I understand now, I just said I don't want to spend money, now I'm saying let's spend money, but I don't think Bernie's gonna charge us $500,000 for that meeting. But I think.
Have you read your report? Have you read your report?
But I think it's important, with something as technical and as nuanced and everything that this is, I think it's important to someone who is very technical and nuanced and understands the law better than the rest of us knuckleheads combined. And so.
I think we should have, I think a trustee.
I think a trustee.
I think.
Jenny, are you gonna be in town by August?
Jenny has a lot of information on how these gifts.
I'm sorry, I will not be back for that meeting.
Okay.
But you can you join
Via Zoom?
electronically, because they will have a
You can
Zoom
make it.
connection.
Oh, Phil said he can make it.
You can make it? Okay. Can you, Jen, can you join?
August
electronically?
3rd at 3 p.m.
I would have to look, because my schedule is not, my own currently down here. I would have to double check.
So is that a motion for
So we have
Chief Evans, Bernie Weiler, and Phil Sass, and maybe Jenny?
potentially Jenny.
To go to battle on. Really mess.
Yeah,
Do you have any inclination to join?
I'm out of town next week.
Okay.
I will.
Driving to LA.
Okay.
I'll make the motion then that we send
Yeah.
Phil, Jenny if available, Chief and Bernie to represent us at the JRB meeting on August 3rd.
Do I have a second for that?
Second.
Um,
And that, I think the
We are
voting,
kind of,
I think the
spending money.
voting member has to be a member of our board,
Good call.
so.
Since we're paying Bernie to go, I believe it would have to be a roll call, correct?
Yes.
Make a motion.
I'll second.
We already had a motion.
Oh, there you go. Oh, I made the motion.
I just
Ah, look at
need
that.
a roll call.
I made the motion.
President Kelly.
Yes.
Secretary Sung.
Yes.
Treasurer Hannan.
Yep.
Trustee Simpson.
Yes.
Trustee Staley.
Yes.
Hey, wasn't that fun? Discussion and possible action on ambulance billing issues. Chief, would you like to address this?
I would, thank you very much, Mr.
Okay.
President. So as Robin knows better than I, we get, is it unreasonable to say? It's a number of time,
Per week. Probably 5.
yeah, so a lot of people calling with complaints about ambulance fees and ambulance being charged for ambulance service. In my memorandum to the board, I pointed out 2 issues last week. Both of these actually happened. They happened last week, so that was a good opportunity. And again, clarification from the board. So sometimes people call with concerns facing financial hardship, that kind of thing. And sometimes they have a fundamental problem with it because they pay taxes. In one instance, and this is reflective of more occasions than that, so a lot of times because someone from more affluent home in a more affluent neighborhood within our jurisdiction. One example is indicated, a $750,000 house, I pay $900 a year property taxes. And why do I get an ambulance bill? And so one of the things.
Not paying 1,800 a year.
Well, that's, I want to take this opportunity, and I actually, this is not the first time since I actually promoted that I brought this talking point up to the board, because it's an educational opportunity for our community. Please understand where we're coming from. There are essentially 2 mechanisms for us to get operating revenue. One is through property taxes, and the other is through ambulance fees. We don't, no other fees, sales tax, any of that kind of stuff do we get operating revenue. So, for example, the complaint, our current ambulance fee is $1,850. And that property owner of that $750,000 house was paying $899.50 in taxes. And in that conversation, and in this conversation, were you in Carroll Stream, they charge $1,700 for an ambulance fee for their transport, $150 less. However, that same house in their jurisdiction would pay $1,941, or approximately $1,041.50 more every year in ambulance fees. So for the difference of the 150, that's what, approximately 7 ambulance transports before we would be equivalent in terms of what they're contributing financially to the fire district. And the same applies for West Chicago. They have a varying rate for residents and non-residents, anywhere from on the low end, $850 to $1,400, depending on the level of care. But similarly, at their tax rate of 0.91 as opposed to our tax rate of 0.35, the owner of that house would pay almost $1,400 more a year, every single year in property taxes.
And I'll be the first one to say, we can get a referendum passed, I'll be happy about the ambulance fees.
Yeah.
Because the reality of it is, they're so high because instead of collecting a little bit from everybody collectively, we have to collect a lot from just a few.
Yeah,
You know, and
I think
We
we
still have to pay
expressed that in
bills.
one of our many.
we had, that was part of the financial breakdown of the referendum request. And it was clear, and it got confused by some in the public about that rule, that amount of relief. Warrenville, they actually charge $59 more than we do for an ambulance fee, and their tax rate is 0.61, or about $640 a year higher than that house would be in Winfield, and Bloomingdale's higher, and on and on. And I did a lot of the different agencies. I got their ordinances. They were kind enough to share with me. And the point is, our funding levels are not where other fire districts' funding levels are. That's just the way it is, and I'm not making it up.
So all the residents have an option of getting a petition together and going with a different district if they want,
Yep.
if they want a lower ambulance fee.
In this particular
Right.
case, I actually talked to them about going to Carroll Stream.
Right, so, I mean, it's out there for you folks.
What was the response?
That it wasn't an option.
I mean, as far as when you explain to the residents.
The fact that they pay $900 a year in taxes, and that ought to be enough.
All right, well, some people don't. Some people don't.
So in other words, they may be from a fluid area, but they don't understand math.
I'm merely pointing out this is a recurring issue, and I wanted to take the opportunity both to clarify my ability to mitigate these in my capacity, number one, and number two, it's an educational opportunity because we've been through this through all of our campaign efforts, and well, the couple of hundred calls we get about this year, and understand the people in our district, the residents in our district, get a really good deal from some incredible service by some amazing people.
Right, I agree with you there.
So, and just to be clear, it's our ambulance billing service that's sending it out that holds the balance that's due in, correct? And so theoretically, if it was a financial issue and the resident said, look, I need 4 months to pay this, I know we can't say what they would do, but theoretically, they have the ability to offer payment plans, much like the hospital does, things like that. So it's not a matter of saying, hey, you can't afford to pay it and you have to pay it all right now.
No.
It's saying you need to make a concerted effort to pay your bill.
Right.
Is the gist of it. Is that correct with what, that's how I'm hearing. I just want to make sure
Yes,
that's.
they have made payment arrangements to people more than we know.
And
Sure.
more often
They
than
do
not,
it.
I actually think I was on one at one point. I mean, it's what you do sometimes, you know?
and more often than not, homeowners insurance pays for it.
So they pay for all, but they pay for it.
Yeah. of course not.
But it is a difficult and awkward topic and conversation.
Absolutely.
But again, it's an opportunity to explain to the public that this is how fire districts operate. This is how we arrive at operating revenues, and this is the pots of money, and this is how the breakdown works. You know, in terms of ambulance fees contributing to our operational revenue, percentage-wise, as opposed to property tax money, is not necessarily in sync with the funding formula for most fire districts. But that's what we have to do, because at the end of the day, it costs us $3.8 million to operate, because it just does. And that's lean, and that's lean for what we have. You can take a look at the fleet in the building.
It just comes down to, again, you know, the voters say, oh, it's not gonna happen to me, I don't want my taxes raised, and then when it does happen to them,
They don't want to pay.
and they don't wanna pay for it, you know, and it's happening to them, and, you know, it is what it is.
Not to minimize the issues that they had that led to the call, but I think there's still a responsibility to pay the bill, whatever it is, between them and their insurance and.
Your taxes are supporting the tollways, but you still have to pay when you use it.
Yep.
Whether you use it or not, you're supporting it.
Thank you for that report.
Is the,
We need a
is this
motion.
discussed, yeah, so what we really need to do is, do we want to have this become a board issue at all times? Or do we want this to become something that we can trust our chief and staff to delegate with and deal with in a practical and reasonable business manner? If we have a person who's being that kind of person, and the answer is a simple no, or we have someone who's in financial hardship who we might acquiesce to and give them a break after some research. I mean, we have an executive that we
I
can
think you just gotta
trust.
be careful with some parameters need to be set, only because you can't say you have to pay and you don't. I mean,
Right.
there's gotta be some hard parameters, otherwise you put in the trick bag and you don't want to do that.
I believe trustee Saylor had. Were you trying to comment?
Oh, why was I like moving my lips?
I heard you. I just wanted to make sure you didn't. Sorry.
Having a conversation in my head. No, I have big concerns over the fact that like I feel like we're opening a can of worms because the 12 plus years I've been on this board, ambulance billing has always been a problem. People don't want to pay their bills, they don't see why they have to pay it. We open this up and we start forgiving or lessening things or whatever, and everyone's going to start coming crawling out of the woodwork because how people talk in town.
Well, this is for
Like
all,
I just
for everything. So your opinion would be that we can deal with it on a board level, and the answer is no to everyone. I mean, that's kind of how I generalize want to say myself. Yeah, I'm sorry, the answer is no. Figure out a payment program. Is that what you're
I
saying?
mean, I am, yeah, I'm saying no, like this is the ambulance bill. Sorry.
Before we go further.
There's payment plans.
Is there not a mechanism in place with the billing service that if somebody truly doesn't have the money, that there's not a hardship, but an avenue that they could go to that?
Yes, the ambulance company would then come to us and say, we have a resident that is requesting either leniency or whatever. They provide supporting documentation, whether it be proof that they lost their job, they've got their tax returns, they've got a list of other bills from this horrific accident that happened, and they're only making $5,000 a year, but they got $50,000 in bills, and so there are some of those incidents that come up. But those
And
are
I think we should
few.
leave it to the ambulance billing to make those judgment calls, because we don't want to get into that in the middle. I mean, let them do the research.
Exactly.
And if somebody comes up truly indigent that they can't afford it and whatnot, let them do the research, and then I'm okay with the chief making the call.
Except one of the problems is that when you have ordinances, you're putting a executive in place to enforce those ordinances, okay? So he has those guidelines. You're not doing the chief any favors by giving him additional discretion.
Right.
To make
Well, that's kind of where I was kind of going.
Yeah,
with that,
exactly.
And so
Which is why I'd
it's just
rather the ambulance billing do it.
Yep.
well, and then they go, and then you batch them up, and every once in a while, you come, here's the appeals that the board decides. But, to put that in, to put the onus on him, the best way to communicate is to, we have standing operating procedures, we have certain, established authorizations that he has. Put him in a position of then exercising discretion. Now he's out there with no protection.
Sure, let's make a deal.
And that's kind of where I was going with
Exactly.
putting them in a trick bag.
Yeah, we don't want to
All
do
right,
that.
so, are we going to stay status quo?
Yeah, I think the thing is I think it's good to review what the procedures are, and Robin had said, gives you a better idea of how that's handled. And then when there's a batch that the recommendation from because the ambulance service doesn't want the burden of collecting uncollectibles.
Right.
But they do have to make a determination if it is indeed uncollectible or deserves it. So if they make that recommendation, then they come to the board, it's in the packet, everybody can look at it at their leisure, and we can bunch them up when there's 5 of them.
So we're not gonna take any action.
Can
on
you
this.
send an email
Okay.
to the complainants about what you talked about, the area, tax rates and their ambulance billing? you send them an email that they have, that they can read it, and not just listen to you on the phone?
I've not, I've had multiple in-person and or phone conversations with the two examples here, no written communication.
Is there something
From either.
that we could do a written where, what's your email?
Yeah, see, now that's within his authority to say, is to
As a follow-up.
communicate.
Yeah, as a follow-up.
It's already within his authority to say, this is what this board has determined, here is why. And as a matter of understanding the equities of that, compare your situation to other communities.
And in fairness, you probably, if you're doing that, which I think it is good to do a follow-up like that, I think you also throw in there, if you have additional financial concerns regarding this, redirect them back to the ambulance billing. You know, I mean, I
So
think
in one
that
case,
needs
that
to
was,
be part of the
in one
process.
case, that's what happened. In the other one, it's the actual, a philosophical issue with the other.
I think if it's a.
I'm philosophically against the White Sox, I still have to deal with them.
It's pretty black and white.
And I would agree, I mean, communication is key, and sometimes when you're talking to somebody, they're hearing it, but not necessarily listening. And so if we do a follow-up where they actually read it, and sometimes you get connected to the brain a little bit, you understand a little more about, you know, they gotta understand, I hope that the residents understand where we're coming from. But we're in a red every year, and, you know, our budget's getting worse, you know. And we can't charge enough, you know, to compensate, that money's gotta come from somewhere.
Get rid of the engine, just put 4 ambulances, it's crazy.
You know, you gotta pull the horses out of the barn and start pulling the wagon.
So, okay, so, that's, speaking of horses, we beat that one to death. Let's, move on to, have a motion to pay the bills.
So move.
Second. All support?
Yep.
Any opposed? Jen?
Support.
Okay, all right, good, okay.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Recess?
Recess.
We make a decision.
I don't think so. I think, I'm sorry, I did say recess.
He did say recess earlier.
Return.
So we should-
Well, my motion for turn out.
I will second that.
For the purpose of.
Land acquisition, pending litigation, personal salaries, and with this. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.